All right, what's going on YouTube? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. If not, I hope it gets better for you. Wanted to do something a little bit different. Got a new mic, got a new laptop. If the quality of this doesn't sound as good, then on the next video I do similar to this, I'll go back to the old setup with a EV instrument mic and an M Audio USB device. It actually allows you to take XLR and it converts it to digital. So what I want to do is I'm going to talk about my experience with my Ducati and the issue that I had with the fuel system and how I figured out what was wrong with it and how I resolved that issue. So, quick backstory on the bike. Bought the bike from a lady. It was her brother's bike. He was terminally ill. They were trying to sell the bike to help pay for his, kind of his last days uh, on Earth type of thing. It was kind of a sad situation. I don't want to get too much further into it, but the bike did set for some time. It hadn't been ridden. Um, so here in just a second, I will put the video up of what happened right after the bike died. I was driving down. I had driven the bike or rode the bike probably 4 or 5 other times. Went on a trip. It was about 35 miles, 40 miles from my house. Rode up fine with no issues. Was coming back. Bike just died with absolutely um, no warning. Tried to start the bike back up. It wouldn't start. Bike had fuel. Bike had. I had just filled up probably, you know, before we started that journey. So here's the video of what it sounded like right after the bike died, and I tried to restart it.
Any ideas?
All right, so that's after the bike died. I got it pushed up. Actually, to push it up a hill and off the road. I think I ended up pushing the bike for a total of about a half a mile to get it off the road and into a parking lot. So got the vehicle home. Was super lucky. There's a guy who's one of my friends. He has a YouTube channel. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it in the description below. That way you can check out his channel. Who's much more successful than I am, but his video or his channel is actually really cool, and he's a really nice guy. He came all the way up there, which I think was about close to an hour and 15 minutes from his house. Um, picked me up. We got the bike and we took it home. There'll be some photos here as well of it loaded up on his trailer. So got the bike home. Ended up draining the tank. Like I said, the bike had set for some time. Since the bike had set for a little while, the tank itself is plastic, but I don't know where they had last filled up, as well as I had filled up at some gas stations that probably weren't so great. Um, Between it setting and filling up, I believe that had caused some fuel system issues because when we drained the tank, it was pretty nasty looking. It looked like it had rust in it. So drained the tank and then went and got fuel the next day. Once we got fuel the next day, I ended up trying to start the bike, and I'm going to go here and show another video of what happened then. So as you can see, the bike fired for a second and then it just died out. The bike kept doing this every time we would try to start it. So doing some research and asking some questions on the Ducati page, as well as the Ducati forum, there wasn't a lot of information. A lot of people that own Ducatis, when they run into issues, they generally go to a independent motorcycle shop that works with Ducatis, or they'll go to their dealership and have it repaired. So diagnostic work with the bike is difficult. There's not a lot of support from just average Joes. So, uh, posted one guy was very, very adamant that it was the fuel filter. So I went ahead and purchased a new fuel filter. There should be some pictures up here as well. The fuel filter replaced it with what was recommended, put it in, put it back in the tank, which this whole process is kind of difficult. Put it back in the tank, put it back on the bike, fired it up. It did the same exact thing that it just did in that previous video. The way that these are designed is the whole fuel pump assembly. It has your sending unit, your fuel pump, your fuel pressure regulator, and your fuel filter is all in one little. Uh, it's not really a basket, but that's probably the best way of describing it. Um, it's bolted in. You actually have to remove the bolts and pull it out. And then if there's any fuel in the tank, it'll drain while it's upside down out of the vent. So you basically have to drain the tank. So I could only keep so much fuel. I think I kept a half a gallon of fuel. Drain the tank, put it in, like replace the part, put it back, put the basket back in, put it back on the bike, try to fire it up. So it definitely wasn't something that it's just super easy to do because I mean you're making a huge mess with fuel everywhere. So did that. Since we kept having the same issue, I went back to the drawing board and started doing some more research. Another common failure point with the fuel system is the fuel pump. However, prior to doing the fuel pump and after doing the fuel filter, I went ahead and was starting the bike with starting fluid to make sure that it hadn't jumped time and that it was still getting spark and there was no issues. And there's another issue with the bike where the kickstand switch will tend to go out. So since it fired off of starting fluid, that would rule out our kickstand, that would rule out spark and compression and timing since it ran perfect on that. So it led us to fuel. So replace the fuel pump as per recommended by a lot of people on the group and went to start it up, same thing. So, I mean, you can hear the fuel pump in the prior video actually priming. Even though it did prime, people were saying, well, it was just weak and it needed to be replaced. Well, we replaced the fuel pump, it didn't fix it. Now, one thing I am going to say is I didn't reach out to the company that I'm going to talk about here in a second, and I probably should have because they're a great company and they were super helpful on some of the other parts that I purchased for the bike. I purchased the fuel pump through CA Cycle Works out of Conyers, Georgia. Not a sponsor, but I do really believe in them. They're a great company. They were super wonderful to deal with. Their parts came quick. And then the next part that I ended up buying, I'll talk about my experience with them again. Wonderful company. Prices are really, really good. So I purchased the fuel pump because you can't purchase just the fuel pump or the filter or the basically any of the fuel, like the fuel system components directly from Ducati. It's not serviced. You have to buy the whole assembly, which is like $1,400 or $1,500. That gives you your basket, your fuel pressure regulator, your fuel pump, your fuel sending unit, fuel pressure regulator. I don't know if I said that or not, and fuel filter. So purchased the fuel pump, came in a couple days. We put it in. It did the exact same thing. So we had to move on. What I ended up doing was knowing that it was a fuel system issue. The fuel pump had been replaced. We cleaned the lines. I pulled the injectors and cleaned the injectors to make sure and still kept having all of these issues. So I ended up getting frustrated because I got tired of doing the same thing over again, of pulling a fuel system and putting it back. And I took a pair of vice grips and I put it on the fuel return line because the way that this system is designed, the fuel goes through the fuel pump and it goes through the fuel line to your fuel injectors, and then it comes back around and the fuel pump or the fuel pressure regulators inside the fuel, uh, like the fuel basket or the fuel pump basket in the tank. So I crimped it before the fuel pressure regulator, which would then cause back pressure. So when I did that, here's the video of what happened next. So as you can see, bike fired right up. So it was a fuel pressure regulator issue, which if I would have done that in the first place, or if I would have even probably reached out to CA Cycle Works, they probably would have given me that tip ahead of time. But that's fine. I made the mistake of not reaching out to them or reaching out to any professional. I was just reaching out to groups, and without someone being there, it can be very difficult for a diagnostic to be completed. So fuel pressure regulator was the issue. Now, like I said before, the fuel pressure regulator is not serviced separately. However, the reason that I absolutely love CA Cycle Works is they sell these items that you need separate. They sell the fuel pump separate. They sell the fuel pressure regulator separate. They sell their own brand of timing belts, which are more reliable than the OEM Ducati ones. So that's why I'm super happy with them because I purchased the fuel pressure regulator. There'll be pictures as well. It came in, it did look a little different, so I was extremely concerned about putting it in the bike and it not working and then it being used and all of that. Um, so I reached out to them, sent them pictures. There was some very minor differences. Um, Talked to, I believe his name is Chris over there. I could be wrong. It was last year when I took all these videos and dealt with this. So if I got his name wrong, I apologize. Um, Talked to him. We went over um, my concerns with it, and he said, "Go ahead and give it a try." We put it in the bike, and then there'll be a video here in just a second of the bike firing up. I believe the fuel pressure regulator that I ordered from them is like 3.5 bar, and I think the one in the bike is 3 bar. So it's going to, since it's going to have a higher fuel pressure, if the injector pulse is going to stay open for the same amount of time, it's going to allow more fuel to go into the combustion chamber. So you're going to run a little bit richer, which is fine. The bikes tend to run lean, so I'm actually really happy with that. So now the bike has um, new fuel pump, new fuel pressure regulator, uh, fuel filter, and while I was in there, I've already done like the spark plugs. It's a cheap little maintenance item. And we have some other items that we need to do as well on the bike. So coming up on the bike, I have tires that I have to purchase. Well, I've actually already purchased them, waiting for them to come in. I have to do the timing belt, which I'm going to try to shoot a video on for you guys. There's not a whole lot of videos on them, but it is kind of intense. For me, at least, I'm not big into dealing with timing on engines. I don't like it. So for me, it's going to take me a little bit of time. It's going to be um, pretty in depth for me. So I gotta be really careful and stay alert. So I'll try to get that video done as well and get that uploaded. Would like to do a little bit of content on the Ducati as well on the channel. So one thing is I'm gonna end with that video of the bike starting. If you have any questions or anything about like the monsters of this era or any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. If you're a new rider and you have questions, you're welcome to talk to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I've been riding on and off for a while now. Um, so far, the bike runs fine. It runs great. Um, I have no real concerns with it. Once I get the timing belt on it and the tires on it, I'll be wanting to ride it more. I'll feel a little bit safer on it. So, like I said, any questions on the bike, any questions about the video, let me know. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but give me a reason why. Any particular reason or anything that you didn't like about it, let me know. And thank you guys for watching.